Welcome. You are about to take a journey to a place of the divine love within with Deborah Beauvais on the Love by Intuition show. For the next hour, allow her to prepare you in becoming a magnet for a profound love-infused relationship by identifying and focusing on solutions through love. Awaken the light within and let your essence shine. And now, here's Deborah Beauvais on Love by Intuition, all part of the Dream Vision 7 radio network.
Welcome, everyone. Bonjour, mes amis. And yes, here I am, as I say, Deborah Beauvais, founder and owner of the Dream Vision 7 radio network. We are in our 17th year. The Love by Intuition show is in its 20th year. So we've been around, and I just can't believe the years have passed so quickly, and here we are. If you're tuning in for the first time, we are a Boston-based full producing internet radio station with all the bells and whistles. You can listen wherever you are in the world. You can ask Alexa. You can listen to us in your car and the mobile apps and all of that good stuff. So check us out and check out all the most amazing hosts we have, all designed just for you out there, helping you have a positive, loving relationship with yourself and with others, and much more than that. Just check us out. Well, this is a special broadcast because we have Barbara Berger, who has been on the show a number of times. She's a regular. She's from Copenhagen, Denmark. And if you would like to listen to any of the previous shows, just go on the site, Dream Visions, all one word with an S on the end, the number 7radio.com, and put in her name, Barbara, and then Berger is B as in boy, E-R, G as in go, E-R, and everything will come up and you can listen to her at your leisure. And we've come together because now our title is Long Live Democracy, and it's a time where we're going to be voting on the political end in 4 weeks. It's a time where everything is bubbling up, not only in our country, but everywhere, and especially including the Middle East and Russia and all of that. But it all starts with us, and we're going to be talking about that. Barbara is American-born. She's been in Denmark for quite some time now. She's a best-selling author. One of her excellent books is The Road to Power, Fast Food for the Soul, published in 30 languages. She's written 15 books, and the newest one is Healthy Models for Relationships, the basic principles behind good relationships. And this is something that we're going to be touching upon, and we'll see wherever it goes. One more thing, it's a live show. Bob is in the house. Our number here is 833-220-1200, 833-220-1200. You can call into the show itself, ask a question, a comment you would like to share, all of that. So without further ado, Barbara, welcome back to the show.
Thank you. Thank you. What a wonderful introduction. I really feel happy now. Thank you.
Oh, good. And tell us, how many years have you been in Denmark?
Oh, I've been in Denmark since I was in my early 20s. So I left America because I was with a man who was drafted to go to Vietnam. So we went underground, and we ended up getting political asylum here in Scandinavia. So it's been a long time. Mm-hmm.
Well, and you're only 45, so you started really early.
So that was like even before I was born, right?
Well, where would you like to, I want to put out there, everything is about love to me, and bringing everything back to ourselves, loving ourselves so that we're able to love each other, family, relatives, and then feeding the love vibration, because we need to increase the love feeling, because so many people are feeling the heaviness and what those wars are. I mean, it's insane when you think about there's over 41,000 civilians that have died, that have been killed in Gaza. There are 36,000. I'm sorry?
It's heartbreaking.
There's 36,000 people that have been killed in Ukraine. And then think about Afghanistan, Iraq. We've got all kinds of, it goes back to the Vietnam War. And so I would just like to chat a little bit about the human race and how we have come to a place where we need to protect ourselves, obviously, but when do you stop killing? When do you stop? What are your thoughts, especially because you've experienced back then?
Yes, and I have actually, talking about the places you mentioned, I have been all of these places. I have been in Afghanistan, and I have seen up close and personal the conditions that women are living under as not even second-class citizens. They're just about on the same level as a cow, that you just have to work and do what the man says. So, I have seen these things with my own eyes. So, the human race, we are really, really in trouble because until we see each other as one human family, we have a big problem. And I think actually in terms of democracy, the democratic principles, the United States Declaration of Independence, it sums it all up very well. This one sentence, and I am quoting now, it says in the Declaration of Independence, "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men and women are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness." That is one of the clearest, most spiritual explanations of the relationship that we have with our fellow human beings, that we're all created equal.
Right.
And that we are endowed with certain rights from the Creator himself. That we each one are a divine spirit, that we each one have inherent worth. And so the challenge is, which is obvious today, how do we get along with each other better?
Right. It naturally, because we're on the earth, there is dark and light. We have it within us, but we are light. But I truly believe, as you probably heard me say and others, that we came to earth to grow our souls and learn all these experiences. But it's horrendous to actually be experiencing it, but yet you can't stay in that space or it will immobilize us from doing any good. And I just find it, I don't know if you do this, but there are times where I just think about how we were created, or did we get special skills that are not all positive when we came to the earth, that we're all embedded with this wanting to take power and greed and separate the different cultures and attack certain ones. Did we come with these special things that were embedded in the light of who we are? What do you think about that?
Well, what you're really talking about is the lower levels of consciousness when you're ego-driven and you have lost touch with the divinity within, and that you have lost touch with the eternal verities. All the great religions say, for example, Jesus Christ, he had the Lord's Prayer. He said, "Our Father." He didn't say, "My Father." With those two words, that he states very clearly that we are all the children of God. And so you can say that the different levels of consciousness, the lower levels, the more ego-driven levels, that covers up, you can say, our contact with our true nature. And that's sort of the challenge for all of us. How do we stay in this high state, and how do we manifest it, each one of us, there where we are? In other words, we only can do with the space that we are given and try to demonstrate in that space, as you do with your radio shows, as I try to do with my books, all these things that we can do to further the higher levels of consciousness, that we're all one family, that we're all the children of God, that we all have inherent worth. My last book, the one we had talked about, one of the last shows, this Healthy Models for Relationship. This is a book that's based on, the first chapter is based on this understanding that we have this divinity within us, and that it is the foundation stone of democratic societies, and that we're not doing so well in terms of manifesting this in our private lives, in our families, in our close relationships, and that we need to work on that too.
Right. I mean, there's so much to work on. The systems, all the systems that we have need to be worked on. But there's a way of doing that brings people together. It's a way of lifting people up by getting people involved to make a difference. But again, yes, it all comes back to really, finding our own truth and finding the light within us all, each of us, so that we can have good relationships, whether it is someone in the family or at work or a politician or a clergy person, that we can see other opinions, other ways. And you talk a lot about that.
I do, because I think it's important for me to say here to our listeners, I work every day as a coach and therapist, and I've been doing that for many, many years now. So I have talked with thousands of people who come to me when they're in crisis or they're having problems in their families or in their relationships, and I see that we are so challenged in our personal relationships for the same reasons that we're challenged in the democratic societies today, too, that we have lost the ability, or we're struggling, I would say, with the ability to be able to communicate respectfully with each other, especially when we don't agree, when we have different ideas about how things should be done. And you could say a relationship, if you take like a couple relationship or a family relationship, when it's a well-functioning relationship, people have the ability to communicate respectfully with each other, especially when they disagree. Whereas in a family or in a relationship that's dysfunctional, that's not working, that's unhappy, it's this inability to have a respectful exchange of opinions. In other words, usually when I'm coaching a couple or a family, the goal is not that everyone is supposed to agree. The goal is, how can we reach a workable compromise? Right. And so you could say in a well-functioning democratic society where we vote people to represent our ideas and they come to either the Congress or the Parliament, whatever country it is in a democracy, then you have all these different people who are elected that also have different opinions. But if it's a well-functioning country, then they discuss and they debate, and then they find workable compromises to further the prosperity, the well-being of the citizens of that country.
Exactly.
So you could say that is why democracy is actually, I say it's the most spiritual form of government, because it's based on the fact that each citizen, each person has a right to be here and has a right to have their ideas and their opinions. And how do we navigate when we have differences of ideas and opinions? That's really the challenge that we are facing everywhere in the world.
Right, exactly. But if everyone could just go back to what democracy means, if you look it up, it's liberty, equality, and justice for all, not for the few, not for just men, but for all human beings.
And it's also, if you think about this, the key to what you're saying, which is so important to remember, that in a democracy, one vote for one person, and each individual citizen has the right to their vote and to their voice. And it doesn't matter if you're young or old, if you're rich or poor, if you're black or white, if you're man or woman. No matter what, you have one voice, one vote that belongs to you. And that's really this whole concept of inherent worth, or the divinity, the God force, and each one of us has a right to be expressed through us.
Right. And that's the part, when I think about just that piece about we have the right to vote. If there's someone that's trying to prevent us to vote, why would you follow that person?
That's a really good question. When
you know democracy is liberty, equality, and justice, and someone's doing their best to prevent that to happen, why would you follow that person?
I ask myself that question.
I always think, what would God choose? I'm sorry, what?
That's the most important question that's going on in the United States of America right now.
Yes. And I simply say, just in the last couple of months, I've said, you know what? What would God choose? And if each one of us would just think about that, we'd have our answer. Anyhow, so
I think I'll vote for you for president.
I'm sorry?
I think I'll vote for you for president. You, Deborah. Geez. What would God choose? That's great.
Imagine that. Oh, gosh. Well, the first point I would make with that is I think someone younger with a brilliance would be better than someone that is older like myself. But I thank you for that vote. Because we're on the same wave. We're on the same wave. And it's just, it is going to, it's an exciting time. And as I say, and I have to say it again.
Yeah, I can tell you because I live in Europe, and I've lived in Europe for a long time, and the Europeans are so shocked and disturbed by what's going on in the United States. And the United States of America has always been the great light of humanity. And now it is, as you say, the divisiveness, the amount of misinformation, the lying, all the stuff that's going on. People in Europe are just watching with their mouths open. We're just shocked, continues to be shocking and shocking and shocking. So the great hope, the great light of the world, the United States, it's really, really, really troubling for all of us. And what will happen to all of us if democracy falls?
Right, but we can't go into that. We can't be in that space. We have to focus on democracy thriving, and that people can go back to that as just to just simplify everything. Just go back to what democracy means. Goes back to we the people.
Worth.
Yes, it's all of us. You made a great point when you said our with Jesus instead of my. It's all of that. If we can just think of that and lose the old belief systems. Sure, we've got to do a lot of figuring out of all the different pieces that need improvement. But then and rules and all of the things that need to be done. I wonder sometimes who's making these decisions. I know one person does not, but who makes these decisions at times? It just doesn't make sense. You'd think, well, gee, if you put a bunch of kindergarten kids in a circle and posed a question or a new rule, I bet they'd come up with something more excellent. Yeah. Something that would work for all the people.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So
let's talk about... I'm sorry.
Well, again, if we go back to that we're one human family, that all the great teachers, the avatars, the light of the world, they have all taught that same, that we're all one family. And that sort of it's been covered up, you could say, by a veil, by the greed, by all kinds of lower levels of consciousness. And people are programmed from birth, from the environment that they're born into. So the only way out of this is education, freedom. I mean, all of these higher levels of consciousness, we have to keep talking about it all the time. All the great religions are built on that. I mean, there's no other way. If you think about, for example, Mahatma Gandhi, and he was the great leader of India on their long march to independence from the British. And he was a very, very spiritual person. And he meditated every single day. I have studied him a lot. He meditated every day and said aloud chapter 2 of the Bhagavad Gita, which is the holy scriptures of the Hindus. And the very first sentence of chapter 2, which was Gandhi's favorite, Krishna says, "They live in wisdom who see themselves in all and all in them." I mean, there you have it, just that one sentence. Yes. That we're all children of the same universe, the same God, whatever you want to call it, that we're brothers and sisters.
Yes, we are. Well, hold that thought, because we need to take our first break, everyone. Stay with us, much more. We'll be back in a couple of minutes.
Experience different yet profound healing with Reconnective Healing. Includes yet expands beyond any and all known forms of energy healing. The Reconnective Healing spectrum is comprised of the full healing and evolutionary continuum of energy, light, and information. It allows for healings that are not just physical, not just mental, not just emotional, yet go beyond that to bring healing that includes the evolution of your very being and essence. Deborah Beauvais, trained and certified by world-renowned Dr. Eric Pearl, offers appointment hours at Seekonk Family Chiropractic in Seekonk, Massachusetts. For questions or to set up both distance or local sessions, call Deborah at 508-431-1959. Again, 508-431-1959. Or go to lovebyintuition.com. That's lovebyintuition.com.
Calling all authors. Have you been considering an audiobook? Well, look no further. Come take advantage of Dream Vision 7 Radio Network's unique in-house audiobook production, which includes benefits and bonuses from our radio station. Let our knowledgeable staff guide you to create the audiobook you've always dreamed of without breaking the bank. Check out our full one-stop service from A to Z, including the ACX process. Schedule a free consultation by calling 508-226-1723. That's 508-226-1723. Or go to dreamvision7radio.com.
After narrowly surviving the attack on Sandy Hook Elementary, first-grade teacher Caitlin Royd DeBellis was left searching for answers that would never come. Eventually, she chose to focus on questions that could be answered. How do I make sure this tragedy doesn't define us? How do we get our control back? Those two questions led her to found the 501c3 nonprofit organization Classes for Classes. When gifts poured into their classroom, she decided they would help someone else by paying it forward and being kind. This developed into a social network which allows K-8 classrooms to connect so that every student in the United States can learn these crucial lessons. Classes for Classes' mission is to build students' social-emotional intelligence by connecting them to care. All C4C projects are crowd-funded. Any teacher in the U.S. can visit classesforclasses.org. That's classes, the number 4, classes.org. Sign up today.
Delight your kids with an enchanting journey by reading the Paper Doll Kids Children's Book by Deborah Beauvais and Janine Sullivan. There's even a catchy tune, Kids for Love Song, produced by Bob Sherwood and sung by kids just like yours. The story weaves around 7 paper dolls flying around the world doing good deeds as they bring important attention to our endangered animal friends. There's even a magical ring with a universal message. Kids become interested in service projects, action through compassion, and planting seeds that nurture positive change. The Paper Doll Kids and Kids for Love song are a production of the Kids for Love Project. Get the book now on Amazon Kindle and the song on CD Baby or iTunes.
This is Dream Vision 7 Radio Network, uniting mankind with universal love. Our shows are created from the heart, bringing each listener to a place of divine enlightenment. Breathe, relax, and enjoy. Let life flow.
And we are back, and this is a live show, so feel free. We welcome all callers. Bob's in the house, 833-220-1200, 833-220-1200. We're with Barbara Berger, who we've had previously, and we're talking about long-live democracy, and then why democracy is the most spiritual form of government, and all kinds of relationships, everything else. To get in touch with Barbara, and she has, as I mentioned, 15 books. You can get them anywhere you're buying books. And her site is beamteam.com. Beam like a beam of light, B-E-A-M, beamteam.com. And you can find her there and see what she's up to, as well as really getting a full idea of who she is and her soul work. So, Barbara, let's get to the principles, the democratic principles that you would be, respect is the big one, that you would be teaching your clients. And actually, everyone should be taught these in their home. So what would you be telling them, the 3 pieces of what they need to do to improve their relationships? And I have to say that it can be challenging when you have family members that we disagree on a number of things, and yet we love each other.
Well, again, what you're saying now is one of the basic things that I teach everyone, and that is it is so important to understand that love and agreement are 2 different things. This is you just hit the nail on the head. This is something that there's so much misunderstanding about. People have the idea that if you love me, you'll do what I want. You'll agree with me, and they have made a lot of studies about, you think that, say for a couple relationship, that people who stay together, it's because they agree about everything. But they have found out that that's not the truth. The truth is that people who stay together have figured out how to treat each other respectfully, especially when they disagree. And so if we could go back to the basic principle to remember and remind yourself, and especially in family relationships, that you can love someone and you can disagree with them. They're 2 different things. And if we can get that one down, if we can really realize that, then what we have to do is we have to learn a more practical way of speaking respectfully to each other. It's something that I teach people. It's more like, to learn to say, I hear what you're saying, sweetheart, or I love you, sweetheart, and I have a different opinion. So in other words, acknowledging that you hear another person, that you respect that they have a different opinion than you do, and then standing firm in your own ideas. And then the next step in all this is that if we can do that, then it is like in a parliament or in a Congress, can we discuss and find, I call it a constructive solution, the workable compromise that both parties can accept.
Right. I think, too, to add to that is when you really listen, and I know sometimes it's hard, if you're in a busy life or maybe you're tired and you're not thinking the best that you could, but to ponder what someone else does say, whether, because you might find some truth in there that is for you. There may be something in there that you need to educate yourself on. Maybe you thought one thing, and in fact, it's something else. It's an opportunity to listen and not be so, and I say this for myself as well, to not be stuck with your beliefs. As we evolve, we realize our beliefs can change. They can mold in, they can move and weave into different places as we go along in life. So I think that's important.
It's very important, but I would say that what you're saying is an extension of what I just said, that when you really listen to another person, you find some value in what they say. That makes the workable compromise possible. In other words, there is some truth in what the other person is saying, or there is some value that you actually try to focus on. Where's the good here? And can we build on that? And that demands that you actually really listen to the other person. But I mean, all of these qualities are really comes down to the one human family concept, that we're all part of this, we're all in this together, and that we should value, as you say, the other person's ideas, contribution, and see what we can build on that we have in common.
Right. And with that said, I know it's not easy because there are, some people aren't open on their end, and they don't want to hear anything else, especially the oneness. I mean, it seems so real to me. So it is what it is, I mean, we are one. We all came from the same place. We didn't come from, different species. But yet sometimes people are stuck and they don't want to open to, and that's what I think, like in politics and such. A lot of as you age, that you may not want to change your belief systems, and you're stuck, and you're going to stick with it until the end of time.
That's really problematic, isn't it?
Yes, yes.
But again,
there are people like,
it's so important to understand that everyone is programmed from birth with the belief system of the family, the culture that they grew up in. So everyone is reacting based on these basic belief systems that most people are not even aware that they have. And part of the process of either, spiritual development, going to therapy, personal development, what you want to call it, whatever you want to call it, is to become aware of the belief systems that are running your life. And once you can start to identify the belief systems that are running your life, you also become more conscious of them, and you can actually question them. Is this a respectful belief system? Is this something that is good for all of us? I mean, to actually look, is it appropriate now that I'm a grown-up person to act like this? So there are many, many things that come in this process of growing self-awareness. But it's also true that there are people who are not interested, people who are stuck where they are, and that's why some relationships don't continue, whether it's in the family or it's in the couple relationship, where they're too far from each other, and that their value systems are too far from each other. And that's getting real. I call my approach getting real about, what can we actually do something about, and what can't we do something about. And the big realization is we cannot change other people. We can only work on ourselves. Hopefully our influence, if we have our good influence, if we're a good example of healthy living, healthy relationships, that we can influence the people around us. And of course we should try to do that, but we have to be realistic about that we can't change other people, only they can do that.
Right. I also it's important to cultivate as much patience as one can, because for obvious reasons, if you're disagreeing with someone or some people, however you want to look at it, and they are stuck. I could say then maybe I'm stuck in certain areas too, but I'd like to think that I do ask myself, is this for me? Is this mine? Is it someone else's? What do I believe now? And a lot of times, too, it's because of education. If you haven't read enough about a certain topic, you might form an opinion, but that opinion may be based on the knowledge that you created in your own mind.
Exactly. Yes, you're a very wise woman, I must say. And apropos cultivating patience, one of the techniques, especially when I have couples to therapy, I teach them to use what I call the time out principle. In other words, when they're getting into an argument and they're getting worked up and they're getting into that, there's a certain point in a discussion where it's no longer constructive. And so I teach them that they should decide in advance, before they're having a fight or an argument, that if only one of the two people says time out, they have both agreed in advance that they will respect the time out principle. And the time out principle is that they have to part immediately for a minimum of 15 minutes. In other words, that the one goes in the one room, the other one goes out in the kitchen, or the other one goes for a walk, that they have to separate. And they have to wait at least 15 minutes before they go back together, and hopefully it would be good if they would stay away from each other for a half hour or more. But in other words, to give them time to cool down and to think about what they have going on and to remind themselves of, this is not working when we talk to each other like this. Can't we talk in a more respectful manner? And the couples that I have that actually do it, they really, really improve their relationship. I mean, it's so exciting to see what happens when people actually do some of these things. So that's something I really work on with people, the time out principle.
I like that, and that all makes sense. Yeah, I mean, it is. I can see how it would be so rewarding to see people really shift their relationships in the way that they discuss things or have disagreements, because you can just go on your day feeling good about what transpired, whether it's your end or their end. It's a positive exchange.
Yeah, but you could say it's also it gives time for the basic democratic principle again that we're talking about, that when you take a time out, you can remind yourself, what is this discussion about? It's about honoring that we both have our ideas about how to do things, and that we're going to try to find a workable compromise, that we're going to try to find, the space in between us where we can both meet in a good way. I mean, and that's quite an achievement. When a couple does that, sometimes it's like, wow, it's really exciting.
Right. And it's powerful, and I can see how it would bring people together even deeper, even closer, relationships. Yes. Well, we're coming up on another break, and I want to ask you, we can continue talking about the Democrat, but I have a couple other questions too that I'd like to ask. And when we come back, I would like to find out a little more about where you're coming from when you say why democracy is the most important spiritual form of government. You mentioned it at the beginning, but let's get into that when we come back.
Okay.
Sound good?
Okay.
All right. And everyone, one more time, I'll give out the number. It is 833-220-1200, and you can reach Barbara and purchase her books anywhere, but her site is beamteam.com, just like the light, beam, B-E-A-M, team, T-E-A-M.com. We'll be back in a couple minutes.
Take a journey to a place of the divine love within with Deborah Beauvais on the Love by Intuition Show, Monday through Friday at 6 p.m. and 6 a.m. Eastern. Our message is love in the purest form. The light within us all is a guide to recall our beginning, to learn to love self and humankind, and to feel the higher power of our own divinity. To attract love, one needs to be loved. Come join us and step into this glorious vibration called love.
Delight your kids with an enchanting journey by reading the Paper Doll Kids children's book by Deborah Beauvais and Janine Sullivan. There's even a catchy tune, Kids for Love Song, produced by Bob Sherwood and sung by kids just like yours. The story weaves around 7 paper dolls flying around the world doing good deeds as they bring important attention to our endangered animal friends. There's even a magical ring with a universal message. Kids become interested in service projects, action through compassion, and planting seeds that nurture positive change. The Paper Doll Kids and Kids for Love Song are a production of the Kids for Love Project. Get the book now on Amazon Kindle and the song on CD Baby or iTunes.
Are miracles real? Can you move from mayhem to miracles? 30 prominent authors say yes as they share their high fives and down lows of challenges, abuse, addiction, and love. Experience hope, the magic elixir of miracles, through the personal stories of New York Times best-selling authors James Redfield, Dr. Bernie Siegel, Sister Jenna, Reverend Temple Hayes, and many more. If you like bestsellers, chaos to clarity, and crappy to happy, you'll love crying and laughing through mayhem to miracles. Sacred stories of transformational hope. Available now on Amazon and in bookstores worldwide.
It's a child's job to play, to learn, and to have fun. It's an adult's job to keep them safe. Did you know that 1 in 4 girls and 1 in 6 boys will be sexually abused before the age of 18? Every day, families enter the Children's Advocacy Center because a child's courage to tell someone what happened to them. Keeping our children safe starts with a conversation. This is Michelle Aranger, Executive Director of the Children's Advocacy Center. Learn more on how to keep your child safe. Visit cacofbc.org. This message made possible by the Fall River Rotary Club.
This is Dream Vision 7 Radio Network, uniting mankind with universal love. Our shows are created from the heart, bringing each listener to a place of divine enlightenment. Breathe, relax, and enjoy. Let life flow.
And we are back. Barbara, I wanted to ask you, with these relationships that everybody is having, each one of us, whether it's a family member, a friend, or whatever, a parent and a child, have you worked with parents that have kids that have come out that they are gay, or the transgender group of kids, and teach the parents how to have an open heart and respect? Because I've seen quite a few parents have a really hard time when their child comes out, and they're disappointed, and yet we're all one. And so do you work with them on the oneness, or how do you open their hearts and minds to this precious child they have, regardless of whether they're 10 or 20?
Yes, it's just a heartbreaking, heart-wrenching, gut-wrenching experience to see people who could even have that thought that their child is not precious, because, it's just horrible. But anyway, I would say that the main thing that I work with, whether it's this question or any other question, is what I call healthy boundaries. And healthy boundaries, I think the best way I can explain it is when we have healthy boundaries, if you try to imagine a tennis court, if you and I, Deborah and Barbara, we're playing tennis, there's this tennis court, and then there's a net in the middle. And you have your side of the net, and I have my side of the net. And we're friends, okay, or we're in a relationship, or we're in a family. And in a healthy relationship, we stay on our own side of the net. It's like playing tennis. When we play tennis, I don't jump over on your side. I stay on my side. And you don't jump over on my side. You stay on your side. And so the most common boundary violation is when one person gives another person unasked for advice. In other words, if I tell you what to eat for breakfast or how to fix your hair or how to be with your husband or your children, and you didn't ask for my advice, it's like I'm violating I'm jumping over on your side of the net. And so you could say that in families where we have, for example, as you just said, a parent who doesn't like their child's sexuality, I mean, it's really, really a terrible boundary violation. I mean, each person is a unique individual, a unique creation of God, and that has a right to be the way they are, think the way they are, do what is right for them, as long as they don't interfere with somebody else's right to be with them. So boundary violations in families are just rampant. I mean, they're everywhere, and because we haven't been taught the basic principles of healthy boundaries, it's just everywhere, and people don't really realize what they're doing. But for example, when people come to me and I start to talk about it and explain it to them, and I give them the list of boundary violations so they can study it, and then we go through their relationships, some people it's like, oh my God, I didn't realize, And so it is a question about becoming more aware of the way we are treating our fellow human beings. We may not realize that we are violating other people's boundaries.
Right. And that may be a good piece of it. And yet, as parents, to disengage with your loved one because of that, it's not part of being one. It's not that oneness where we all came from the same place.
Mm-hmm. I'm not quite sure. Try to explain what you just said.
Oh, I'm just saying that when parents disengage with their kids because of them coming out, it really doesn't add up to me because of the oneness. If we're all if we all came from the same, then
it's very hurtful. It is, definitely.
Yeah. And I sometimes wonder why it's so hard for people, but I think it's what society has built with, there's something wrong with you if you are not like us.
It's really, really ultimate disrespect, you could say. It really is.
Yes. So let's shift gears and the democracy. When you say it's spiritual, why is democracy the most spiritual form of government? You're thinking because of those principles that have been stated.
It's based on that each person has a right to be here, that each person has inherent worth. And a dictatorship, people don't have a say. I mean, they don't. They're not allowed to speak. They're not. So that's the disrespectful of each individual's inherent worth. And so, inherent worth is the key. It's the God force within each of us, and that we're all different manifestations of this God force. And that the challenge for all of us is to how do we respect our own right to be ourselves, and at the same time respecting another person's right to be themselves, even if it's different from what we prefer. This is the healthy boundaries question. And this is where the challenge is for all of us. And that's why I think that in terms of a democratic society, you could say a dysfunctional family is a family where there isn't respect for the rights of each individual, that they don't practice the democratic principles in the family. In other words, that there's usually the petty tyrant, the person who knows best. And it goes back to your question, what if you have a kid who has a different sexual preference, that you have this dominating, tyrannical person who knows better than everyone else how people should live and think and be? It's awful. But that's the characteristic of a dysfunctional family. And so you can say you can have a dysfunctional family, and you can also have a dysfunctional society and a dysfunctional democratic. So the dysfunctional is when we have forgotten these basic principles that we've been talking about this whole hour, this respect for the inherent worth of each person.
Right. That is correct.
So important to meditate on that every day, I feel. Apropos meditation, I would like to say before we run out of time, in terms of, I have started a daily meditation every day for 10 minutes at 3 p.m. here in Europe, and that would be 9 a.m. at your time, Eastern Standard Time in the United States. That we, no matter where you are, if you would like to join me and all the many people who have already joined me, that for 10 minutes we send out thoughts of love and peace and healing to the whole world, to every man, woman, and child on earth without any distinction, apropos everything that we're talking about, and that we envision during these 10 minutes a rise in consciousness and that peace and harmony prevails and that good human qualities prevail. So it's up on my website, the details of the meditation, but it's at 9 a.m. your time, Eastern Standard Time.
So do we do this on our own, or do we tune into your website?
No, you do it on your own. We're not doing anything online or anything. It's just the meditation where I have people who tell me that they've set the alarm on their phone, or if you're out in town or if you're driving, you can still do it. In other words, that you take these 10 minutes to. The more people we are who focus on peace and harmony together, it has an influence. So in other words, we have to do everything that we can to lift the collective consciousness of planet Earth at the moment.
Right, absolutely. And there are groups that are doing things just like that. So I think we would be happy to do that, and I like the idea of putting it on our alarm on our phones so that if we are in the midst of things and we forget, we can always do that. We can hold the space and do that. And
I'll send you the description of the text, and you can post it on your site if you want, if you think it's a good idea.
All right. That sounds good. That sounds very good. So in closing, what can we do separately to cultivate more respect in our relationships? What can we stop in time?
Yeah, first of all, to just think about these things and to think about what basic democratic principles are and what does respect look like, and then ask yourself, each one of us has a responsibility. Am I respecting the rights of the other people in my family or my partner? Or, in other words, am I practicing what I preach? And am I making space for this respectful, constructive conversations that we all are longing for? And you could say that in society at large, if there's a lack of respect, if it's very divisive and poisonous, and we still have to start somewhere, and the best place and the only place really we can start is with ourselves. And it's important to understand the ripple effect. I write about it in several of my books, that everything that we do and say and think has consequences. And that is our power in the world, our hemisphere of influence, that if we have healthy boundaries, if we're an example of kindness and respect, hopefully, we will be able to influence the people around us in a positive way. And so it's every single day, in every single relationship, are we loving and kind, as you say? Are we a living example of the power of truth to set free into health and freedom and wealth and prosperity and loving relationships? That's what we all want.
Right. And we can always do better. I think it's also important not to beat ourselves up if we're having a day where we're just not feeding into, the love, kindness, democracy, and all that. If we're just having a bad day, it's okay. It's okay, but we can shift. We can shift in a moment by just putting I always say, put your hand over your heart and feel your heart beat, and then you can just shift that feeling that you may have had into one of, okay, let's see what blessings are coming the remainder of the day instead of staying in the other, the heavier.
It's so beautiful what you just said. So put your hand over your heart, and immediately. I'm just doing it now, listening to you.
Yeah,
you feel you feel the love and peace immediately.
Yes, and it's important whether you're doing that with yourself or whether you're doing that and other people are around, and they may, they may see it, but they all feel that energy. When that energy is in the glow and the brilliance and all of that, people feel it.
Definitely. It's a heart opening. It happens immediately. Just to talk about it, I feel better. Thank you.
Yeah, well, I do too. I want to thank you because you have shared such wisdom and such depth of what people can, come away with and actually implement it in their lives and start thinking about it. And we all know that our minds drive everything. And so we really need to have a deep conversation with our mind, and are we going to listen to everything that it shares?
Well, I think that if you listen to this program and you're interested in some more details about the healthy relationships and the healthy boundaries, I try to really, really describe it in detail in my latest book, This Healthy Models for Relationships. I really try to, for example, give examples of how to speak, conversation techniques when you disagree with your loved ones. I really, really try to say, okay, so what does this look like in practice if we start to practice these principles? So I would really like to say to people, if they want to know more about it, I try to write down everything I've learned over all these years of coaching people and from my own life, what works and what doesn't work.
Excellent. So it's beamteam.com. Or you can go on Amazon or anywhere else and buy the Healthy Models for Relationships by Barbara Berger, Berger. Well, we have had a nice chat.
Thank you.
Enjoyed sharing all the things that you can offer and what you're offering the world. And I thank you for all the work you've done to shift the world and elevate people in this
challenging time
in this galaxy that we are in.
And I would like to say the same to you. I thank you for being my soul sister and for all the wonderful work that you are doing to lift the collective consciousness in this galaxy that we are arriving in.
Thank you. And back to you. So everyone listening, listen again, have a chuckle, but think seriously of what you can do to improve your relationships, and remember what democracy means and share that with others. A lot of times I think people don't realize the 3 principles within democracy, and they are liberty, equality, and justice. Justice for all. So until we come together again in love, au revoir.
Yes, thank you, my dear. Thank you, and bless you.
Bless you.
Are you seeking a clearer path to love? Then tune in to the Love by Intuition show next week. All designed to your highest good. To contact Deborah Beauvais, owner of Empowered Connections, call her at 508-226-1723. That's 508-226-1723. Or link on to lovebyintuition.com. Remember, we are all one, and we are all part of the miracle of love.
This is Dream Vision 7 Radio Network, uniting mankind with universal love. Our shows are created from the heart, bringing each listener to a place of divine enlightenment. Breathe, relax, and enjoy. Let life flow.